UFC Austin takes place this Saturday, and I'm here to give you my full card predictions and betting breakdown. This is a very good fight night, and I think there's a lot of money to be made. With that being said, let's start out with the early prelims, which is Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Veronica Hardy. In this matchup, I want Veronica Hardy to get the takedowns, but I don't think she will be able to because Jamey-Lyn Horth is very big for the division, and she's also very physically imposing with her fighting style. I think on the feet, she might get hit a couple of times, but she'll land the more damaging shots, and she might overall be the better striker. I think Veronica Hardy, as an underdog, is being a very common play throughout the community just because of what she did to Juliana Miller, who is ass. I really don't believe in Juliana Miller at all, and in hindsight, after we've seen the Veronica Hardy fight, we've seen Juliana Miller just looked horrible in every single matchup after that. I think Jamey-Lyn Horth goes out here, keeps the fight on the feet, is able to stuff the takedowns just based off of her strength alone, and beats her by decision. I'll say 29-28, 30-27. Let's move on to the next fight, which is Wellington Turman versus Jared Gooden. I'm going to go with Wellington Turman here. I think he actually looked very impressive against Randy Brown, and he showed very improved striking. He now has a very untelegraphed kick, thanks to Alex Pereira, who he's been training with. I think he's going to be improving rapidly, seeing that he is training with Alex Pereira, and we have seen rapid improvements in his striking game. I honestly think he's the better striker here. When it comes to his chin, I don't really trust it. He can get clipped. Jared Gooden can turn his lights off, but I think when it comes to the feet, he'll be able to outstrike Jared Gooden. He has some decent wrestling defense. I don't want to call it great. He's not really physically imposing. Like, he doesn't have the greatest chin. He doesn't have the greatest power, but he does have some very good submissions as well. So if Jared Gooden really does go for the takedowns and he gets them, I mean, Wellington Turman can find a submission, and he is very dangerous off of his back. I think he's better everywhere, but Jared Gooden can absolutely take him down or clip him early with a very big shot because Wellington Turman is hittable, and he doesn't have the most reliable chin. And Wellington Turman is very hard to get a read on, but I'm just going to go based off of his last fight where he had a very impressive performance against Randy Brown on the feet. And that is a very close fight where some people thought Wellington Turman won. So we're going Wellington Turman by decision. Probably 29-28. I think Gooden will probably find some takedowns or outstrike him in a couple of rounds. So we'll go 29-28 there. Moving on to Rodolfo Bellato versus Ihor Potieria. In this matchup, I'm going with Rodolfo. A lot of people are saying Ihor Potieria is a fantastic underdog. I don't really understand it all that much, because here's the thing. Ihor Potieria, he doesn't have a lot of power in his hands. I know Rodolfo doesn't have the greatest chin. He's been chinned twice against Vitor Petrino, if I'm not mistaken. And the thing that sucks about Rodolfo Bellato is he has a brawling type of style on the feet where he gets hit a lot, and you can't rely on that when he doesn't have the greatest chin, and he can absolutely get knocked down. Ihor can do that. I just don't believe in Ihor's power all that much. In the Shogun Rua fight, and I know Shogun Rua does have a pretty solid chin, but Ihor Potieria was landing the most powerful shots he could potentially render up. He was just completely loading up, landing on the chin of Shogun Rua. He was able to survive. Eventually, he found the TKO. I know it was technically an impressive performance, but in that, just the way this guy throws strikes, the way his chin is out there to get hit, I can't trust him. Moving forward, in Rodolfo Bellato, he's going to land some big shots. I trust him to land first. And if Ihor Potieria lands on him, I think he could potentially recover. And if this fight does hit the ground, Rodolfo Bellato is the much better grappler. He's got very solid, I don't want to say very solid, but he's got some pretty solid submissions. And I would expect him to submit Ihor Potieria if this goes on the ground, if he doesn't TKO him on the ground as well. When it comes to the striking, I trust Rodolfo a little bit more. I don't think he's fantastic, but I think he will be able to find his way and pose his will against these bottom feeder light heavyweights because he is a pretty big light heavyweight in his own regard. So Rodolfo Bellato, we're going to go with the round 1 KO over Ihor Potieria. He's going to land first, and Ihor Potieria, despite his big chin, will get wobbled, and Rodolfo Bellato will finish him against the cage. Round 1. Moving on to the next fight, we have Steve Garcia versus Costa. I think it's Melquizael. I don't know how to say it, but Costa is what we're going to call him. Steve Garcia, fantastic underdog. I want to pick him. I just can't because he has chin issues, and it feels like if you connect on a clean shot against him, he will go down. And that's what I can't trust about him. I trust Melk off the back foot, who has shown pretty decent stand-up off the back foot to, keep this fight standing if Steve wants to shoot in on takedowns. And from there, I trust him to outdamage him off the back foot. Like, he's shown pretty decent counters. And Steve Garcia does nothing but bring the pace. And when you're the type of fighter that brings the pace but doesn't have a good chin, like I mentioned with Rodolfo Bellato, I just can't trust you. But if Melk does engage in these firefights, in this brawling exchange with Steve Garcia, he can get chinned. His lights can go off, or he can just lose a decision. Like, Steve Garcia will go out there and he can dog his way to a victory. I just can't trust his chin. If he had a good chin, Steve Garcia would be a much more successful fighter. But it's just sometimes these fighters develop styles where they're going to get hit and they're going to get into these brawling exchanges, and it's just a 50-50 matchup because he can go down or his opponent can go down. Steve Garcia will bring the pace. Costa will kind of keep his range off the back foot. I pray to God he doesn't entertain these fucking insane striking exchanges in really close quarters. I expect him to maintain range and out-damage him for 3 rounds. We're going with probably a 29-28 decision. I think he'll probably be dumb in one of the rounds, probably get clipped, probably get hurt. Steve Garcia will pressure, find some success. I'll say probably in round 1, and then rounds 2 and 3, he'll make an adjustment, stay at range, and win those rounds as well. He can put out Steve Garcia. I expect him to probably drop him in 1 round, just because Steve Garcia's chin is not something that I can trust, but he has very good recovery in all fairness. Moving on to Drakkar Klose versus Joe Solecki. In this matchup, I'm going with Drakkar Klose. Not very confidently. I was on the Joe Solecki side for 1 point, but then I flipped back to the Drakkar Klose side. I think Drakkar Klose will be able to either stuff the takedowns, and if he does get taken down, will be able to scramble back up to his feet. He has some solid wrestling. It's not fantastic. He doesn't have the greatest submission defense. I can see him getting choked out by Joe Solecki or even rode out to a decision, but I do trust him to get back up to the feet for at least 2 of the rounds, enough to do enough damage to win the fight by decision. He could get it done by KO. I honestly think this will be kind of one of those fights where you'll see the grappler take him down a lot. He'll get back up a couple of times, do enough damage to sway the rounds. We'll probably see a clear round in both of their sides, and then there was one deciding round where it's damage versus control, and they're going to go the damage side with Drakkar Klose, because we have seen judges go more towards the damage side recently when it's damage versus control. So we're going to go 29-28, split decision, Drakkar Klose win. He can get it done by KO. This is an interesting fight, especially from a prediction standpoint. I'm actually pretty interested in this one. Moving on to Cody Brundage versus Zach Reese. In this matchup, I'm going with Cody Brundage. I think Zach Reese is absolute dog shit and should not be in the UFC. His performance on the Contender Series was a first-round submission win, but his opponent sucked, and it looked like he wanted to get submitted. His opponent was out of the armbar, and they just moved further into it. I think Zach Reese definitely has some good submissions off his back, but I haven't seen any offensive wrestling from him, and while he does have some good power in the hands, his striking makes me cringe whenever I watch it. This guy is just waiting to get chinned. He's super stiff. He throws strikes with no defense at all. And I just can't explain it, but his chin just protrudes from his neck in a way that he's just asking to get knocked out. Cody Brundage is a big guy with power in his hands. He's got pretty decent wrestling. Not fantastic. Malkoun was able to take him down and have that weird DQ situation. Cody Brundage is not a dog. He has horrible fight IQ. Knowing him, he's probably going to knock out Zach Reese, get on top, and then pull guard and get submitted somehow. That's just how Cody Brundage works. But I know that this fight will be standing in the early rounds. I don't think Zach Reese is going to go out there shooting takedowns, and I think Cody Brundage has the wrestling to stuff any takedowns from Zach Reese. This will be a striking fight early. I think Cody Brundage is the better striker, and he has more power in the hands. Zach Reese just looks like a guy as well that has a horrible chin. He's going to get chinned in round 1. Cody Brundage, lock it in. He's an underdog. I do like to play. I know Cody Brundage is ass. That's the only reason why he's an underdog. But you got to look at some fighters and realize how ass they are. Watch any tape on Zach Reese that is not his highlights. I know he's powerful. I know he's dangerous everywhere. Zach Reese sucks. Watch him fucking strike, please. So we're going Cody Brundage, round 1 KO. Not very confident, but at plus 200, you got to take it in my opinion. Moving on to Miesha Tate versus Julia Avila. Julia Avila, I feel like, has not fought in a very long time. I think it's like 2 to 3 years, but I think she's the better striker. She's going to be a little bit younger. It's 35 versus 37. Miesha Tate is 37. She hasn't looked good recently. She lost to Lauren Murphy, who is not good whatsoever. Julia Avila, she will come at Miesha Tate. And I don't know if that's very good for Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate is the veteran who's fought the better opponents, may have some tricks in her bag, but I think Julia Avila will be able to stuff any takedowns coming from Miesha Tate. Try to knock her out. I don't think she will, but I think she has the power and just overall the weapons to beat Miesha Tate in at least 2 of the rounds. I think she might start to gas out a little bit towards round 3 because Tate does have some pretty decent cardio. We're going to go 29-28 Julia Avila. She's going to back up Miesha Tate. She's going to keep putting on the pressure on the feet, landing some nice shots, out-damaging her for the first 2 rounds. And any takedowns, like I said, coming at her will be stuffed. Moving on to Punahele Soriano versus Dustin Stoltzfus. In this matchup, Dustin Stoltzfus needs to wrestle and get Puna down. If it's on the feet, he's going to get chinned. He doesn't have a very good chin. His striking is not good whatsoever, but he can take him down and potentially TKO him on the ground because Punahele Soriano's chin is a little bit suspect. But Puna is the better striker. He's much more powerful, and he's faced better wrestlers, in my opinion, in Nick Maximov, which that fight can arguably go his way based off of damage. I trust him to do damage if he gets taken down. He has some decent submissions, and just based off of athleticism alone, I think he can get this back up to the feet and knock out Dustin Stoltzfus in round 1. Pretty confident in that one. I'll say like a 70% chance of winning. Moving on to Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva. This is interesting and a lot closer than people will say if they're on the Joaquim Silva side. Joaquim Silva looked good against Arman Tsarukyan, who's fighting in the main event, and we'll get to that later, but Joaquim Silva, in my opinion, really isn't as good as some people will say. I mean, he has some skills, he's got power in the hands, he's got some decent striking, but his striking's never looked fantastic to me, and while he has some decent submissions, his takedown defense, I don't want to say he's suspect. Like, it definitely has improved, and he stuffed some takedowns from Arman Tsarukyan, and he was able to get back up to his feet in a couple of times in that fight. But when it comes to his stand-up, he's definitely powerful, and it's definitely good, it's definitely quick, but there definitely are technical flaws, and Clay Guida can take him down or potentially just outdog him because Clay Guida has the chin to potentially take the shots from Joaquim Silva, gas him out and TKO him, submit him, whatever it is late. I think he could take down Joaquim Silva and hold him there. I don't expect it to happen. I think Joaquim Silva will be able to knock him out in probably rounds 1 or 2. Clay Guida has just looked very bad of recently. Especially in his fight against Scott Holtzman, he looked horrible on the feet, and even in his last fight against, I believe it was Rafa Garcia. It was Garcia, I know that for a fact. On the feet, he just does not look good, and he's waiting for a guy that's pretty powerful to knock him out on the feet. I think he should look to wrestle, tire out Joaquim Silva a little bit if he wants to win this fight, and he's going to have to rely on his chin because he will get hit, but he just looks so bad on the feet. I think Joaquim Silva will be able to connect with no problem. Joaquim Silva's good, but he's not fantastic. He's got power in the hands. And he's younger than Mr. Guida. And when you're young and you're powerful and you're fighting a guy like Mr. Guida who looks horrible on the feet recently, I have to pick you by KO. I might even go by round 1. Round 1 or 2 KO by Joaquim Silva. Moving on to Kelvin Gastelum versus Sean Brady. In this matchup, I'm going with Kelvin Gastelum. Sean Brady can win this matchup though. Look, he's got pretty decent wrestling and he's definitely got some good submissions. He's a BJJ black belt. He's a pretty solid grappler. But his stand-up sucks. And I think this fight will be on the feet for at least a minute or two. And in that minute or two, I do trust Kelvin Gastelum to be dominating him and potentially even knocking him out. I'm picking Kelvin Gastelum by round 2 KO. I think he'll either be able to stuff the takedowns, get back up to the feet for enough to either win the rounds or just KO Sean Brady on the feet. Kelvin Gastelum is a lot more powerful than Belal Muhammad. I think he's potentially the better striker than Belal Muhammad. When this fight is on the feet, Sean Brady is in big trouble. His stand-up is horrible. As soon as he gets touched with adversity, he wants to run the other way. He is not a dog. I cannot trust his chin. When this fight is on the feet, Kelvin Gastelum will take advantage and he will knock out Sean Brady. I picked round 2. Not super confident though because Kelvin Gastelum, like I said, has the flaws of getting taken down and getting submitted. Sean Brady does those things. So, Kelvin Gastelum, round 2 KO. Moving on to Rob Font versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I'm taking Rob Font. I think he is the better striker. He's got the better power. Deiveson Figueiredo, as we all know, is moving up from the flyweight division. He is coming off a loss against Brandon Moreno. He's 35 years old. Rob Font is 36. I think Rob Font will be able to keep this on the feet. Originally, I was on the Figgy side. Figgy, I thought he was going to take him down and hold him there for at least 2 of the 3 rounds, potentially submit him, and maybe work in some striking as well. I think if I'm Figgy, I want a complete mixed martial arts approach, but I've seen the interviews from him this week. He said he came to the bantamweight division to test his striking. And I think if he goes out there wanting to test the striking against Rob Font, he will get clipped and he could get knocked out. I think he'll get clipped, he'll start shooting in on some takedowns, and we have seen Rob Font outside of the Corey Sandhagen performance, which is the main reason why I was on the Figgy side. But I rewatched some film against him versus Simone and him versus Garbrandt. He has some takedown defense. And I don't know how you can look at that fight against Corey Sandhagen and not drill takedown defense, not do everything you can to improve your grappling. I think Rob Font has absolutely been improving his grappling. And if you go back and watch some tape from Figueiredo, you know he shoots takedowns. So I think Rob Font definitely has worked in some grappling into his camp, which he might not have even worked on grappling at all against Corey Sandhagen because he looked horrible. That's probably one of his worst performances yet. But Rob Font, the better striker. He's going to be rangy. He's going to absolutely mog Figueiredo. And Figueiredo gets clipped a lot with straight punches. Rob Font has a great jab and a great straight right as well. And I do want to mention Figueiredo, his style on the feet, he's a brawling fighter. He does have power in his hands. I don't think he's going to hit the same at the bantamweight division, but he kind of takes one to give one. And he will get hit. And you can't be getting hit at the bantamweight division. Genuinely. Rob Font can put his lights out. I think eventually we're going to see Rob Font beat him for like the first 2 rounds. Probably hurt him a little bit, but then round 3 will come around. He'll land a big shot and kind of get him with a volume type of TKO up against the cage. Rob Font, round 3 KO. Not super confident. I can see Figgy working in the wrestling, making it a mixed martial arts fight, winning by submission, winning by decision. He could potentially even TKO Rob Font if he makes it a very interesting type of brawling fight. But Rob Font has talked about in his interviews that he wants to remain technical, which I do really like that game plan from him. Moving on to Jalin Turner versus Bobby Green. In this matchup, I will be taking Jalin Turner. He could knock out Bobby Green early or find a submission after he clips him. I think he'll have a couple of big rounds early, and he'll gas pretty hard in round 3, and from there we will see Bobby Green have a lot of success and really have a big round 3, potentially finishing Jalin Turner, potential 10-8, but I think Jalin Turner will survive. He'll hold on to the clinch a little bit, and it'll be a 29-28 clear decision for Jalin Turner, but we're going to be looking at him as, shit, this guy does not have very good cardio, but he is taking this on short notice. So he's never really had fantastic cardio in the past, if we're being entirely honest. Now that he is taking this on short notice, considering how big he is for the division, how much weight he probably has to cut, he's either going to miss weight or really, really hurt himself trying to make weight. So I don't really know if this is the guy that you want taking the short notice fight, but hey, let's see if he can make weight. Let's see what he can do. I think when it comes to the striking realm, Bobby Green is very good off of the back foot, and Jalin Turner will pressure, which is why I am super, super scared for the Jalin Turner side while I am picking him, because Bobby Green has good counters. Great off the back foot, very good cardio. Jalin Turner, on the other hand, he will pressure. He will give Bobby Green the ability to potentially counter him because he will pressure, he will throw strikes, and sometimes he's a little bit sloppy. After he gets hit especially too, he'll make very bad mistakes. When he got clipped with Dan Hooker, he immediately went into some brawling exchanges, started throwing elbows as Dan Hooker's teeing off at him while he's rocked. If he gets clipped with big shots, I don't really trust him. His fight IQ, for the most part, when he's not rocked, is pretty solid. He's got good submissions. Like I said, he's dangerous on the ground and on the feet. His wrestling, it's a little bit unproven. But Jalin Turner is so big for the division. He'll probably end up missing weight. Bobby Green will accept. He probably clips Bobby Green in rounds 1 or 2. I think he'll have enough gas to clearly win those 2 rounds. I really do like the teep to the body for him here, and the high kick's good. He's got a good kickboxing style, right? He'll target the legs a little bit. I think his ability to just keep the teep to the body against Bobby Green will make it hard for Bobby Green to find his range on the counters. And like I said, maybe Bobby Green starts to work it in a little bit later once Jalin Turner starts to gas out and gets a little bit more sloppy. Jalin Turner's striking defense isn't fantastic. He was clipped with some massive shots against Dan Hooker. And I also do want to mention in his interviews this week, he has been pissing me off a little bit. I'm just going to mention it briefly. But he's saying, I feel bad. I had some mental problems because of how much life I took off of Dan Hooker after that performance. Bro, you lost the fight, and he hurt you bad in rounds 2 and 3. Yeah, did you hurt him? Yeah, did you beat him in a round? Yeah, did you high kick him? But bro, come on, stop acting like you feel bad when you lost the fight, clearly. And you were just project. Maybe take some time off to become a better fighter, get better with your striking defense. Anyways, I'm not going to be a hater. I think he beats Bobby Green. I like his kickboxing style. I really, really like his teep to the body, but I can't trust his cardio. And if he gets TKO'd late or just absolutely outclassed for the last 2 rounds because he doesn't have enough cardio, don't be surprised. Can he finish Bobby Green early? Yes. I just think Bobby Green is going to be smart enough to move around a lot and stay out of the truly dangerous shots from Jalin Turner. We'll see. I could also see Jalin Turner coming out a little bit more passive, seeing that he gassed out pretty hard in round 3, and he could be trying to preserve his cardio a little bit more since it is on short notice. Moving on to Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan. In this matchup, I'm taking Beneil Dariush by decision. I think he's the better striker, and if Arman Tsarukyan does shoot in on the wrestling, I think he is the better wrestler, but Beneil Dariush has very solid counter grappling to where he can stuff the takedowns, and if he doesn't stuff the takedowns, he will be able to have some very good scrambles to get back up to the feet or threat submissions to the point where he can get back up to his feet. Beneil Dariush is a very solid grappler in his own right, and when it comes to the striking, I think he's a better striker. He's got a very solid kick to the leg and body. He mixes it up very well, and he has kind of a slow striking style. It's not super flashy, but it is very, I want to say technical, but it is very basic, fundamental, and he's very fundamentally sound, so that's why he has a lot of success. He has very good straight punches, but he can also pressure you and have success on the back foot as well. Arman Tsarukyan will more than likely be pressuring Beneil Dariush for a lot of this fight. I think Beneil Dariush is being underrated when he's off the back foot. Like, he has some very solid counters. We saw it in the Mateusz Gamrot fight, but people are going to say he's not a very good counter striker. He's not very good off the back foot just because of the Charles Oliveira fight. Charles Oliveira has some of the best pressure in the entire UFC because of how powerful his hands are. His hands are so much more powerful than Arman Tsarukyan's. It's almost not comparable at all. Arman Tsarukyan can KO Beneil Dariush, but I really don't expect it because Arman Tsarukyan, when has we ever really seen him hurt somebody on the feet? He couldn't do it to Joaquim Silva, couldn't really do it to Mateusz Gamrot other than when he landed a spinning back fist. And I do want to mention, When he throws a spinning back fist, sometimes he's so far out of range, he's just waiting to get clipped after he throws it. If you watch all of his fights, when he throws that spinning back fist, sometimes it's so far out of range, you think, is this guy stupid? Is he retarded? I'll say this much. Arman Tsarukyan, he has a good body kick, and he has a good high kick. That's the only thing in his striking game that I really see him setting up, if I'm being entirely honest. And sometimes, especially in the Mateusz Gamrot fight, that's the only striking that's really working for him. He doesn't really get the hands going half the time, right? What he'll do is he'll throw a couple of high kicks, and then that opens up the body kick. Or vice versa, he throws the body kick, and it opens up the high kick. But even then, have you really seen him have a lot of success on the top level against anybody? And against Mateusz Gamrot, like, yeah, he was out striking Mateusz Gamrot, but personally, I'm not a big believer in Gamrot's style. Or striking, excuse me. Arman Tsarukyan will throw the kicks, and then he'll try to get the hands going, and he's not going to find the mark. Beneil Dariush is going to counter him every single time, because when he throws the hands, he just looks super jittery and fidgety to me. He just throws stuff, it feels like, without trying to set anything up, and he's just throwing it to throw it, throwing it to keep distance, throwing it to keep busy. I don't trust his stand-up. I'll tell you that right now. I don't think he's got a deep bag. Not that Beneil Dariush has a massive bag, but he's good off the back foot. He can pressure you. He's got a good kick to the leg. He's got a good kick to the body. He's got very good straight punches. I'm telling you right now, Arman Tsarukyan, just the way he throws punches is so open to getting countered, right? And when the grappling exchanges come, Beneil Dariush is going to be benefiting, in my opinion, because when he stuffs the takedowns, he's going to be exerting much less energy than Arman Tsarukyan. When he gets back up to the feet, he's going to be exerting much less energy from Arman Tsarukyan. And we have seen Arman Tsarukyan gas in a 5-rounder against Mateusz Gamrot. In my opinion, Beneil Dariush just needs to get one of the first 3 rounds, because he's going to get 4 and 5. Beneil Dariush, to me, seems like a guy that will have good 5-round cardio. Maybe he's not going to push the most insane pace, but it feels like a lot of what he's doing with all of his striking doesn't take all that much energy. He throws it very calm. He seems slow, but it's because he's very calm, and it feels like he's preserving his energy a lot of the time, and he'll sneak up on you. Beneil Dariush has power in the hands, but he's not going to rush anything. He's going to be very calm, very patient against a guy like Arman Tsarukyan who's going to rush forward. He's young, he's inexperienced, and I think Beneil Dariush probably did benefit a lot off of the Charles Oliveira loss. And he also did say that he felt a lot of pressure when fighting Charles Oliveira, because everyone was saying it was the main event, whatever, and people will say that's an excuse. Personally, I think it's a valid excuse at some point, because no man wants to admit they couldn't handle the lights. Who wants to admit that? Now, he says he would beat Charles Oliveira 9 times out of 10. I think that's a little bit delusional. I would pick Charles Oliveira in a rematch against him. I think Charles Oliveira probably has a pretty good style to beat him now that we've seen him get back up to the feet and knock Beneil Dariush out on the feet. But I do want to mention the fact that he's admitting that he was scared, didn't feel like himself in there just because of how big the fight felt. It's definitely something to note. And in the interviews this week, he has mentioned multiple times that he's fighting Arman Tsarukyan, and he's not taking this fight because he needs it. He's taking this fight because he loves to compete. He loves the fight. He doesn't feel all the pressure on this fight, although he is the main event. I trust him to be a little bit more relaxed. And another thing to note that I haven't seen anyone really mention this week, Arman Tsarukyan has fought like at least his last 5 fights in the UFC Apex, not in front of a crowd. He's got good wrestling, don't get me wrong. He's the better wrestler when compared to Beneil Dariush. I just trust Beneil Dariush to nullify the grappling and keep this on the feet. And I trust him rounds 4 and 5. Against Mateusz Gamrot, when Gamrot was shooting in nonstop, I think he shot 20 takedowns, pushing an insane pace. Beneil Dariush conserved his cardio very well. And at the end of that fight, he looked pretty fresh to me. It looked like he could have gone another round or 2 for sure. And I think he's going to keep that in mind when fighting Mr. Arman Tsarukyan. He's pretty decent off the back, but we've seen it before. He's fundamental. He's not flashy. He's kind of slow. And Arman Tsarukyan definitely is a little bit quicker, but he doesn't set anything. I really just don't believe in his stand-up. Rewatch his fights. Tell me where he's setting up strikes. I also do want to note, too, Beneil Dariush is very good at throwing the knee when his opponents dip in. We saw it in the Mateusz Gamrot fight. When they're shooting in on a takedown, he is a very good level change knee. And from what I remember, I can't remember the damn fight. Damn it. But Arman Tsarukyan, if I remember correctly, he shot in on a takedown and has been clipped with the knee before. Beneil Dariush will look for strikes while he's shooting in on the takedown. I like Beneil. I think he's just being underrated a little bit after the Charles Oliveira loss. I understand he's slow. When you watch his tape, he's not flashy, but I think that's why he's a little bit underrated, and he should not be this big of an underdog. So we're going Beneil Dariush, 3-2 decision, 3 rounds to 2. I don't want to do the math on 48-40. I think that's a 48-47, so there you go. Beneil Dariush by decision. Let's make some money. With that being said, that's going to conclude this video. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good one.